Good morning, class. This is Tuesday, March 31st. This is your lesson for world history. Tuesday, March 31st. Make sure you are on top of all your lessons. We talked about yesterday. Make sure you're doing your lessons. You need to be doing your lessons every single day. You have 2 days to do each quiz. So do the lesson for the day, go right away, take the quiz for the day so you stay on top of it. So we're learning about Attila, king of the Huns. So I'm going to review quickly, and then we'll get into our lesson for today. Attila, king of the Huns. Of course, we know he was born in 406 AD. His father was Mundzuk. He was born into a royal family. The Huns were a nomadic group of people that lived in the Great Plain, which is modern-day Hungary, which is in Eastern Europe. The Huns had migrated from Central Asia around 370 AD, so just a few years, 35, 40 years earlier, before Attila was born. The Huns had migrated from Central Asia and had been living in what's known as the Great Plain, or the Great Hungarian Plain in what's modern-day Hungary. He and his brother Bleda had to learn the ways of the Hun culture. So every boy growing up in the Hun culture had to learn how to use a lasso, sword, bow, and to be a skilled horseman. And Attila and his brother Bleda were no different. They had to learn everything any other warrior in the Hun culture would have to learn. So it's a picture of the Great Hungarian Plain. In Eastern Europe, they migrated from Central Asia over into here. The Huns were living there for about 4 decades before Attila was born. We talked about being skilled horsemen. The Huns loved to fight from the horse. They did not like getting off. As you see here, they had small, fast horses, and they would use bow and arrows to attack their enemy from the back of horses. So Bleda, Attila, and any other boy growing up in the Hun culture needed to be able to skillfully shoot a bow and arrow from the back of a horse while moving, and then that's how they would attack. They needed to attack quickly and use their arrows. So after they migrated to the Great Hungarian Plain, they just kind of set up more as they grew in power, setting up more buildings, things like that, and not living as much of a nomadic lifestyle as they were. Okay, we talked about his rise to power. Attila and his brother became joint leaders in 434 AD after their uncle King Rua died. So King Rua was the king. Attila and Bleda's uncle King Rua was the king, and he died in 434 AD. When that happened, Attila was 28 years old. His older brother Bleda was 44 years old, and they became joint leaders of the Hun tribe and the Hungarian people. It's a picture of King Rua, their uncle. This is a picture of Bleda, and this is a picture of Attila the Hun. Okay, we talked about this yesterday, but there's 2 differing theories on why the brothers took over after their uncle. One theory that historians say is that because of the ruthlessness of Attila that he is known for, and Bleda, they killed their cousins, all their male cousins, any sons of King Rua. They killed them all off so that they could be the only heirs to the throne. That's one theory. The other theory is that King Rua had no sons, and so Attila and Bleda were groomed from a young age to become king. That they had known for a while that they were going to become king because Rua had no male children. But either way, both boys had been going to Hun negotiation meetings for a while. Growing up, they did not just learn how to use the lasso and the sword and the bow and be skilled horsemen like any young male Hun would do, but they also had been educated in leadership and warfare. They'd been going to these meetings with generals and leaders, and they'd been around the throne and the leadership there in the Huns. So they were prepared for the throne. That is why many people believe that they knew from a young age that Rua had no sons and that they would become the king. Huns were powerful before Attila took charge. So obviously the Huns became more powerful after Attila took charge, but they were powerful before Attila took charge in 434. All right, here's some more pictures are depictions of Attila the Hun and how they fought using their bow and arrow from the back of horses. Okay, Roman numeral 3, new notes. Roman numeral 3, peace with the Romans. Peace with the Romans, Roman numeral 3. The Huns had fought against the Eastern Roman Empire for hundreds of years. So the Huns had, obviously the Great Hungarian Plain is near where the Roman Empire went up to, the borders of the Roman Empire. So they've been fighting for hundreds of years. Attila and Bleda together brokered the Treaty of Margus with Rome in 439 AD. So just a few years after they became in charge, they had a peace treaty. They brokered a peace treaty called the Treaty of Margus with Rome in 439 AD. So Attila and Bleda together formed this treaty with Rome, a peace treaty in 439 AD. This treaty meant that the Romans would pay off the Huns for peace. So the Roman government would pay the Huns so that they would not attack them. So they'd been fighting for a long time, attacking villages, attacking Roman soldiers. As we see here, this is a Roman soldier. Hundreds of years they fought back and forth. But in 439 AD, Attila and Bleda, joint leaders of the Hun Empire, signed the Treaty of Margus. That meant that the Romans would pay the Huns for peace. Before the treaty, the Romans used to pay the Huns for protection against other enemies. So they've been warring back and forth. The Romans would pay the Huns to protect them against other enemies. Then the Huns just started attacking the Romans, and then the Romans had to pay them just so that they wouldn't attack them. So peace with the Romans, big important part. Right in the beginning of Attila and Bleda's reign, the Huns had fought against the Eastern Roman Empire for hundreds of years. At one point, the Roman army was paying the Huns to protect them, to protect their villages against other invaders. But Treaty of Margus, 439 AD, was brokered by Attila and Bleda, and this treaty meant the Romans would pay the Huns for peace instead of paying them to protect them. After this treaty was signed, it's very important, but after this treaty was signed, the Romans removed their troops from the Eastern Front. So they didn't believe anymore that the Huns would be a threat. So they took their troops out of the Eastern Front, thinking that the Treaty of Margus, that they had paid, they paid for this Treaty of Margus with Attila and Bleda and the Huns. They took their troops out of the Eastern Front, and they sent a lot of those soldiers to fight a group of people called the Vandals in Sicily and North Africa. So the Roman Empire at this time is very, very big. It spans all the way into Africa, into Asia. Obviously Sicily there in the Mediterranean Sea, and the Romans had been having problems with the Vandals to their western and southern boundaries. The Vandals were a Germanic tribe that fought against the Romans for years. So make sure you have these notes down. After this treaty was signed, the Romans removed their troops from the Eastern Front. So they signed a treaty, the Treaty of Margus, with Attila and Bleda. And after they signed that treaty, they removed a lot of their troops from the Eastern Front, and they sent them to Sicily and North Africa to help fight against the Vandals. The Vandals were a Germanic tribe that fought against the Romans for years. This is a depiction of the Treaty of Margus. Here we have the Romans leaving the Eastern Front. Okay, the Vandals. Who are the Vandals? The Vandals, you don't need to write this down, but the Vandals originated from the area that is modern-day Germany. As the Huns grew in power and ferocity, they moved southwest. The Vandals had a kingdom located in North Africa for about 100 years. They were a constant threat to the Roman Empire. Vandal pirates eventually captured the islands of Corsica and Sicily. The Vandals invaded Rome in 455 AD, plundering and destroying much of the city. The English word for vandalism comes from this group of people. So these are a group of people that on the western side of the Roman Empire, they came out of the area that is now modern-day Germany. And eventually, they settled in North Africa, actually set up a kingdom in North Africa for about 100 years, and they began to attack the Roman Empire from the south. They would send ships, they would pirate. They eventually captured the islands of Corsica and Sicily, and eventually, even after all that in 455 AD, they ransacked Rome, and the word we have for vandalism now comes from this group of people. So, after the Treaty of Margus is signed, the Roman Empire takes the troops out of the Eastern Front, sends them to the Mediterranean Sea, sends them to North Africa to fight against the Vandals. Here's just a picture of the Vandals sacking of Rome, 455 AD. All right, so after this treaty is signed, the Huns turned their attention east and warred against the Sassanid Empire. So this is a picture of the Sassanid warriors. So now that they have this peace treaty signed with Rome, they didn't fight in the west anymore. Attila and the Huns focused their attention east, And the Sassanid Empire ruled in modern-day Iran. So where Iran is now, and I think we have a map. So Iran's here now. This is modern-day Iran. This green area is what the Sassanid Empire looked like, I think, at its largest. But Hungary's up here, and so they turned their attention and they would fight against the Sassanid Empire to the east. It was the last pre-Islamic Persian Empire. So it was the Persian Empire, the Sassanids, and it was the last pre-Islamic Persian Empire. The Huns were driven back to the Great Hungarian Plain. So this is the first time that the Huns did not destroy everything in their path. They came up against the Sassanid Empire, and they were turned away. They couldn't defeat them. But after the Treaty of Margus is signed, the Huns were bored with the Romans on the west, and they turned their attention to the Sassanid Empire, very powerful force on the east. And they began to fight against them, and Attila and the Huns were turned back. They were driven back to the Great Hungarian Plain. This is another picture of the Sassanid, or depiction of the Sassanid warriors. They would use camels to fight from, and this is actually them fighting against the Roman Empire, Roman soldiers, but that's just a picture of them there. Okay, let's review quickly on what we learned today. Peace with the Romans. So the Huns had fought against the Eastern Roman Empire for hundreds of years. Attila and Blooded together, they brokered a peace treaty with Rome in 439 AD. This treaty meant the Romans would pay off the Huns for peace. Before this treaty, the Romans used to pay the Huns for protection against other enemies. After this treaty was signed, the Romans removed their troops from the Eastern Front. The Romans went to go fight the Vandals. This is the Vandals here. They sacked Rome eventually. And then the Huns, after they signed the peace treaty with the Romans, they went to the Eastern Front, fought against the Sassanid Empire, and eventually were driven back to the Great Hungarian Plain. Okay, that is your lesson for today. Go over, take the quiz, and for March 31st, 2020. Thank you.